Reporting from Arkham Asylum, this is Mr. Rogues. In this video we spotlight forgotten supervillain Ruby Thursday. Throughout the decades, countless vile knaves have reared their ugly mugs to pester our beloved superheroes. Some of these dastardly rogues have gone on to stand among the most infamous fictional villains in pop culture history, while others have completely vanished into obscurity. In this episode of Forgotten Supervillains, we spotlight Ruby Thursday. Ruby Thursday, real name Thursday Rubinstein, made her first appearance in The Defenders 32, published in 1976. The story, which continued into the following issues of The Defenders, was written by Steve Gerber and penciled by Buscema. In it, we introduce Ruby Thursday, the newest member of the Headmen, a group of bizarre villains led by Dr. Arthur Nagin, aka the Gorilla Man. The other members are Chandu the Mystic and Dr. Gerald Morgan. This team of strange foes aspire to conquer the entire world, facing opposition from the Defenders, and they've recruited Ruby to aid them in their cause. Miss Thursday was a scientist, a mad scientist to put it mildly, who replaced her own head with a highly advanced robotic orb. This orb is capable of shapeshifting and can basically take any form, including weapons and the faces of others, making Ruby quite a deadly rogue and a great impersonator. The crazy woman admires the beauty and perfection of her dome head, and her master plan is to replace everyone's heads with identical orbs. Her joining the Headmen just serves as a means to reach this insane goal. After this appearance, Ruby continued to show up and pester the Defenders throughout the 1970s. In the Defenders Annual number 1, Ruby ran for President of the United States, using her head-shaping powers to look like an ordinary woman. This bizarre ploy was just part of the Headmen's latest scheme for world domination. In 1979, Ruby showed up for a Defenders two-parter without her fellow Headmen, and instead employed the services of a strange monstrosity known as Dybbuk. The odd villainess seemingly died at the end of this adventure, and subsequently disappeared from the comic scene. She didn't reappear until a decade later, in the first 3 issues of Sensational She-Hulk in 1989. Apparently Ruby hadn't died, and now she found herself reunited with her old pals. This time around, the wacky Headmen attempt to kidnap She-Hulk and place Chandu's head on the Green Giant's body. Following this story, Ruby went on to appear a bit more often, popping up all over the Marvel Universe alongside the Headmen. She then disappeared once again, but returned in 2001 when the team finally fought their old arch foes, the Defenders, for the first time since the 70s. As usual, their game was world domination. Because why not? In 2006, Ruby appeared on her own in issue 4 of I Love Marvel, a Valentine's special series. In this weird noir story, it's revealed that old Orbhead had a fling with fellow rogue, The Answer, some years ago in Paris. The Answer never got over Miss Thursday and wants her back. Meanwhile, Ruby finds herself targeted by the world's deadliest assassin, Bullseye, who planned to use The Answer to get to her. Of course, Bullseye always gets to his targets, and in the end, Thursday seemingly died yet again, getting hit by the Stones album Flashpoint, which contains the song Ruby Tuesday. Bullseye then finished her off by severing her globe head with the single Ruby Tuesday. It wasn't the end for old Rube though, as the Answer saved her dome head. Among other fairly small appearances, Ruby showed up in a couple of issues of Wolverine Origins in 2010. Here, the feral X-Man busted Thursday out of jail and attempted to recruit her for a mission of his. It was also mentioned in passing that Ruby has a daughter, the father most likely being the Answer. The character continues to appear every now and then, but mainly in cameos and small roles, and of course usually as a member of the Headmen. As for other media, Thursday has appeared in nothing. A few people requested that I cover the Headmen. I had actually never heard of them, so I looked them up. And yeah, what a weird and awesome team of rogues. However, as you can tell, I decided to not cover the entire group, and instead picked one of their members. Naturally, I went with the weirdest of them all. I may cover the others too in the future, at least their leader, Nagin the Gorilla Man. Anyway, so Ruby Thursday. Just what in the hell did Steve Gerber snort when he came up with this lady? Where do we even begin? A hot, busty chick with an orb for a head, and who's for some reason named after a Stone song. Okay, perfectly normal. But of course, because it's so screwed up, is why this character is so cool. I mean, when you see this, you immediately have to know what the hell's going on here. What's this weirdo all about? And the Answer doesn't disappoint. This freak's plan is to remove all of our heads and give us fine, shiny orbs instead, just like her own. That has to be in the top 5 of the most bizarre and insane supervillain schemes of all time. It's even weirder than Joker's laughing fish plot. What's really a big shame though, is the fact that this scheme of hers universe has been entirely dropped following her first appearance. It was only mentioned in that first story. In the later comics, Rube wants other things, like perfecting the technology of her own head, money, or helping out her fellow Headmen. These schemes are nowhere near as interesting as her first one, and I think it's a major missed opportunity to have dropped it. I mean, a unique character like this deserves a unique plot. As much as I love the Headmen, maybe it would be better if Ruby appeared more as a solo villain. I personally think she could pull it off, and perhaps then she could return to her original mad plan, or something equally insane. It just feels like a waste to have this offbeat character be after something as ordinary as cash. And ever since that 89 She-Hulk story, Ruby has mainly been relegated to the background among the Headmen. It seems like both her and Jerry, the man with the shrunken bones, are just kinda there. The focus is almost always on Negan and Chandu, while Ruby and Jerry just appear to tag along. Again, while I like seeing these four freaks together, I would really like to see both Rubes and Bonesy rise up to the occasion more. Maybe splitting them up a bit more often could result in that. Ruby is, after all, plenty powerful on her own. I guess she'd have trouble facing all of the Defenders solo, but she wouldn't have to. You could just stick her in some other comic. It's not like the Headmen are chained to the Defenders anyway. One thing I wouldn't actually want, oddly enough perhaps, is for Ruby to be fleshed out too much. You could explore her motivations a bit more, but if you give her some tragic origin story or something, I suspect you risk killing the appeal of the character. This is a character who isn't really supposed to make sense. She's supposed to be completely crazy, and you might ruin that by explaining too much. So I say no thanks to some Ruby Thursday origin miniseries or one-shot, although I'm sure some of you will suggest that in the comments anyway. Oh, and by the way, I just want to mention that I have no idea where the character's supposed real name, Thursday Rubinstein, comes from, as I can't remember it ever being used in any of the comics I read. It's kind of a pointless name anyway, as it's no less weird than Ruby Thursday. If you know where it first appeared, then let us know in the comments. So there you have it. That is the story of the really absurd Ruby Thursday, one of the most bizarre yet awesome villainesses to ever grace the page of a comic book. Anyway, as always, remember, Arkham Asylum awaits you in the next video.